Okay, that should work. How y'all doing this morning? Josh here, and I was really fascinated by this show that I watched the other day. And it's got me thinking that there's something very important that we can learn from those who are in the process of dying. There's something called Twilight Knowledge, and I have heard about it, but I wasn't very familiar with exactly what it is. The idea is that during the last moments or days or however long it may last, it could even be a brief second before a person dies, that all of the knowledge of the universe becomes available. Everything becomes crystal clear. And since we can't ask someone who's dead, it's difficult to know whether or not that Twilight knowledge really exists. But there have been folks who are on their last leg who say some pretty profound things. And it's been documented well through history that all cultures have had these experiences with people who have complete sight. This is one of the factors that makes me believe that there really is a collective knowledge. And people are struggling to tap into this collective knowledge, and I see it as kind of, well, we're not prepared for it, in a way. If everyone had all the knowledge, it really would put a damper on the interest of society, I guess, or the differences and the things that we do. So anyway, I watched this show. It was called Dark Secrets. It was one of those cheesy little series. It was like a one-season series where they had supposedly found this locked room with a bunch of some guy's life of work where he's documented all these strange cases. One of them, there was a person who worked at a retirement home. He had to get some paint to match some paint on the outside of the house, or the building. So he went down into the storage room, which nobody had used. Nobody had been in there in a couple of years. He unlocked the door, walked in, and he found all of these cards and dominoes stacked in these just crazy patterns and shapes. They were all done. He didn't understand what he was looking at. We're talking like playing cards, folded and perfectly stacked into these geometric fractal shapes, and they were connected by strings. There was dominoes on the corner of each table representing numbers, representing letters. It made absolutely no sense to him. He thought it was some crazy art project. Nobody knew who did it. The FBI got involved because it turns out that there was a junction box on the outside of the building. Somebody had wired into a junction box, and so the room had 4 phones in it. I guess I could tell you the whole story. It's kind of pointless, but in the end, what happened was the senior citizens, they believe it was 4 senior citizens that lived at the retirement home. They had manufactured their own keys for the door out of, toothbrushes and various things, and they'd gone in there over a period of 2 weeks, maybe longer, and all 4 of them worked together to make these crazy mathematical structures. Apparently, they were calling from these phones. They each had their own phone. They were calling. These phone calls had gone to leaders in places around the world. They believe that one of the seniors made a call to, this was during the Cuban Missile Crisis. This whole time that they were building these things coincided with the Cuban Missile Crisis. And one man speculated that it was because of these elderly people that we avoided nuclear annihilation. Now, that's a wide gap to jump at, and a speculation, of course. And I've looked on the internet for information on this particular, I think it was the Olson retirement home it's in Prescott, Arizona. But there's no information on the internet about it, so I don't know how true the story is, but I've seen the pictures of the creations that they made, and they said that some of these were based on fractal patterns which weren't even discovered until years later. There's a particular type of triangle, I can't remember the guy's name, but it's creepy, but this particular triangular system is how they figure out the outcome of something. You can gauge and predict future events by using these mathematical equations and likelihood and chance. all of the senior citizens died within a week of each other, I believe, and they all had heart attacks, various things, and it was natural. There wasn't no foul play suspected. The thought was that these seniors had had this twilight knowledge given to them for a purpose, or this is my theory, for a reason, and they were given a prolonged version of this all-encompassing knowledge. And perhaps God, the universe, aliens, whatever you want to call it, allowed these people to see clearly what was going on. And they were using these mathematical models to explain things. And these weren't mathematicians, these were just normal people. It was like these savant elderly that worked together, and as it turned out that the NSA and various other groups were very interested in this, and they did a very documented analysis of the room and found equations in there that they couldn't understand, so they went to an autistic savant, mathematics savant. He couldn't even decode the mathematics. The first couple guys who went in there that worked there, they said they didn't even think it was really math. They don't understand because the symbols were so complicated. But this twilight knowledge, what is it? And it makes me wonder if there's a certain percentage of people who are tapping into this innate knowledge. And I believe that sometimes it's obscured by our daily life. For example, you receive a sign from the universe to do something, but you're too distracted. But this twilight knowledge would be everything. And I don't know how the human mind could grasp such a thing or understand. It's not like you just know everything at once, but it's almost like you're being directed by the essence, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. And it makes me wonder how many times people have been called upon by the Almighty, by the universe, by the collective consciousness to do things which either promote something great or prevent something disastrous. We'll never know. For example, if a person makes a really important decision, was that their decision to make, or was that something that they were given? Was that a decision made through the universe? How much of our decision-making process is really our own? Anybody who's written books or any type of paper, or even done videos, say like I do here, I'll go back and read some of the books I've written, and read some of listen to maybe a video I made a year ago, and have no idea where that information came from, or that idea came from that I was talking about. I'm thinking back to like the things that I'm saying and writing are things that, it's like auto-writing in a sense. I have a couple papers I wrote years back, and I looked at it and I was wondering who wrote them. It was almost like I was under a spell, and I wonder how much of this is like, if we allow ourselves to open up to this, how much of it's real and how much of it is in the mind. And it's very difficult, because there's a lot of people out there saying that they are messengers, that they have received, something they need to share with humanity. Then we have to decide whether or not this person's just nuts, whether they actually received a sign. Then in the religious world, they might say, oh, this is Satan talking, or what, evil spirits, whatever it may be, and nobody seems to be able to get to an agreement on, which knowledge is true. So it's very hard to know really anything. But the story about those senior citizens really hit home for me, because it was just one obscure lost story that may have prevented us from being non-existent at this point. And I think it's kind of like all the UFO sightings that happened right after Roswell, supposedly, or right after World War, after we dropped the bomb. And then they say that, that there are intelligent life out there that want to help us. But it's kind of like, well, I'll just put it this way. I've had discussions with people about, aliens. I don't really believe the ancient aliens theory that we are altered DNA by aliens. I believe something happened, but the point being that any species who had evolved to the point where they were able to to move across galaxies, universe, or even some superior race that lives here on Earth, would know not to interfere with the world. And this is why, we have all these, I guess I wanted to tie that in by saying, because a lot of people have these experiences, such as abductions and whatnot, that we're not sure if they're real, if it's a mental, something experience that's brought upon by mass hysteria. There are a million different answers. And then there's a percentage of them that are actually maybe true experiences. And I think this is the same way with this innate knowledge, this consciousness, this Twilight knowledge, that a lot of folks think that they have this particular message or answer to share, and it's hard to decipher what it might be, or if it's real at all. But when 4 people get together like that, they had a purpose. They had a reason. I can't really express it anymore. You just have to watch the show, I guess, yourself. It's called Dark Secrets. And I think the episode was called, it was called Twilight Knowledge. And it was a pretty interesting thing. It's on Netflix, so if you got Netflix, you can check it out. Don't know how much validity is in the story, but it sounds very, very plausible. And so it gives me comfort when I hear stories like that, to know that maybe our decision processes, that get us through life, are completely set aside in our last hours, and we can finally come to full circle and understand who we are. Because if we can prove that there is a collective knowledge, which this is a difficult thing to do, there are intention experiments, random number generators, all these things, but none of them really give any proof that there's knowledge that can be tapped into. Honestly, it's a really simple thing. If we can prove that one person can think about what another person's idea is, let's say, and maybe one person can recite something that happened in the past, that in itself, if a person can say, yeah, this man did this, and then we can confirm that, it makes me wonder, where is this knowledge? Is it something that's just everywhere? Is it just a vibrational energy? Or is it a form of electricity? Is it some sort of a source we tap into? Or is it more like a wave that's always going through that we just have to fire our synapses in order to understand? I don't know. I just find it fascinating, and it saddens me to know that in the old days there were probably prophets who had very important things to say, and it was documented and recorded, and people believed it. Today, if somebody comes out and claims to be a prophet, they are laughed at, as if the prophets ended. Like in the Christian religion, all the prophets of old are true. They believe that these were real prophets. But nobody today seems to be credible. It's because there's so much insanity out there. But how are we to look back in history and think that those people were any less sane? Or any more sane, rather. But they have these... People have written very profound things in history. Historians and... or not historians. Historians have recorded some very profound things that were written in documents by people that... ideas that are shared around the world. And it's almost like we're on the cusp of understanding. We're understanding something, but we can't quite get past this. And I think this barrier that we're trying to get past to really say, okay, I totally believe this is true, or this must be true. Maybe those aren't barriers to be broken down, but rather ideas to be set in a group and understood. And I don't know. At this point, I'm just rambling. I'm utterly fascinated with the idea of collective consciousness. But I'm wondering if this Twilight Knowledge is collective consciousness, or if it's a direct signal sent to the person, let's say. Maybe it is a higher vibrational being, or a fifth dimensional entity that's helping this person to... It's a very confusing subject, because it's like, if the universe is going to intervene, is it doing it through us? But intervene into what? I mean, everything's just so. This is where we're at. There aren't any rights or wrongs other than what we've created. And sure, there are general ideas and things that we want to live by. You know, harm no other, this and that. But I think if we all had a little bit of that Twilight knowledge, you know, where would we be? I think we all have a little bit of it, but we have to learn to recognize it, use it like a tool, like a psychic would. And yeah, that's a great show. Check it out if you get a chance. Yeah, I'll try to put the link up. God, that video turned out to be too long.